Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Chris and this is Restoration Rescue. In today's video, we're taking a break from the frame and the brakes and all that, and we're gonna come back to the engine because we got a friend in town today who's gonna help us out, do some things to the engine to get this thing ready to be sent out. All right guys, so this is my friend Mickey, Sgt Miki on Instagram. Make sure you guys check him out. The link will be in the description below for his channel. He's possibly starting a YouTube channel coming up, so make sure you check him out when he does. But what he's gonna do for us today is he's gonna burr off some of these casting marks for us, since he actually knows what we're doing, unlike us. So I'm going to turn it over to him. He's going to explain some of the stuff that he's going to be doing.
All right guys, I'm Mickey, Sgt Miki on Instagram. I typically do a lot of Jeep stuff, build a lot of custom stuff, fabrication, welding, build custom engines and stuff like that. So what I'm gonna do today is help them out with getting this engine ready to go to the machine shop and do some of the prep work to cut them down on the machine shop cost. When I used to build engines for NASCAR and building speed, the best thing to do is cut down casting slag. So anywhere where you see inside of the engine here, you'll see spots where there's slag inside of the engine where the casting is excessive metal. Oil runs down the engine block and gets caught on that, and it slows down the passageways. In racing, faster you get the oil back to the oil pan, the cooler the oil is. This isn't a race block, but if it works in racing, it works on the street. I'm gonna try to save them some money, it makes the engine last longer, and it makes good YouTube content. So the last clips you just saw was some of the basic work you see of what I do on my Jeep. Now we're gonna move on to the engine here. The tools I brought with me here, you've got the carbide bit, just a regular straight die grinder, got a 90-degree buzz wheel, and a sanding disc here. For most of your aggressive grinding, you're gonna use the carbide bit. That's gonna take away most of your hard grinding and everything like that. Then you're going to move on to the sanding disc to move on to some of your sharper corners. Like concrete and like all hard surfaces, cracks form at sharp corners. So the key to it is to take away the sharp edges right here where the crack is likely to form, because if it's going to crack here, and it's going to move into your water port or into the combustion chamber, and that's where you're going to lose your engine. Thankfully for them, this engine is actually in really good shape. There's still a lot of cross hatching in the cylinder walls, so that means the last time this block was machined, whoever did it did a really good job. The cross hatching is caused when the machine work is done. It's the honing block that goes through and it kind of creates a hatch mark. That's what the piston rings seals on the inside of the cylinders. And if you look down inside of it, it basically looks like a bunch of X pattern marks that's going to run in crosses down the inside of the cylinder walls here. So all the cylinders have really good cross hatching. The reason why we're going to do this work before they send it to the machine shop is because this is going to create a lot of metal shavings. And when it goes to the machine shop, after he does the machine work, they're going to put it in a vat. What a vat is a high pressure, high temp acid vat. And it's going to get inside of that machine, and it's going to spray high water, high pressure, hot water and acid at every angle inside of this block, and it's going to pressure wash it, and it's going to get inside of all these ports and clean everything. So any metal shavings we put in it is going to come out, and that'll save them from having to worry about it later. So when you're doing the die grinding, you're going to want to use a little bit of oil or cutting oil or something like that to lubricate the cutting tool, so it keeps the bit cool. Wear glasses, air protection, and then go ahead and connect your tool to the air. Put a little bit of oil in there, a little bit of oil on tip. Control your airflow. So what I've already went to in here are basically these two back ports. These are your oil return ports. Anything inside of here that's got a polished edge are spec'd and machined ports. So these are where your lifters are inside of. They're spec'd to a certain diameter. So you don't want to put a die grind or anything inside of here. Same thing inside of here. These are all spec'd to certain diameters, so you don't want to mess with anything like that. All these surfaces have certain finishes that need to maintain, so you don't want to get too crazy with touching any of this stuff. We basically went into these back ports and we've ran with our finger to see how the oil is going to feel. Basically, we've taken that sharp edge down to the point where I feel with my finger no sharp edges around any portion of it, and it feels very good around through there. There's no sharp edge where I can feel anywhere that oil is going to get hung up on that edge. So across the top here, this is all a head mounting surface flange, so we're not going to touch this because that's going to hinder the way the actual head mounts to the surface of the block. This is going to get what's called decked, and what that means is when this block gets machined, it's going to get mounted on top of a lathe, and he's going to level off the block, and it's going to get a round cutting surface that's going to make sure that the deck of the surface here is going to get cut perfectly flat. And they're going to cut the surface of this and the surface of the other end. So we don't want to do anything that's going to alter the cutting surface on either one of these two. So we're not going to cut or try to alter this edge here or this edge here on either one of the two head surfaces. So now we're going to move on to the back side and the front side of the block, and we're not going to alter anything on the timing cover or the transmission bell housing mounting flange because it's the same thing there. The bell housing has to mount perfectly to this flange. So if we alter the edge of this flange too much, it's going to possibly crack or warp that way the bell housing attaches, so it can cause damage there. Same thing on the timing cover. If we alter the way that timing cover, it'll possibly cause leaks or cause other issues for them with the water pump or anything like that. So you have to be cautious on what you cut and where you cut. So again, pay attention to where your mounting surfaces are and what you're cutting onto here. So we have these crisp edges here. There's no mounting surface right here on the edge of the corner of the block. This is the corner we're going to work on here. Same thing on the other side over here. We have these rounded corners here. We're going to take these edges off, all right? So we never got around to using these. Why you don't lend tools to friends? I lent it to them and they forgot to return the part that attaches the buzz wheel to this. So what we would use with this is this disc basically just cleans up the surfaces that aren't as important for hard mounting surfaces like the heads. So we would clean up these surfaces like the China rails, which is where the intake manifold would attach, or the transmission, or the water pump and timing cover, just so we can check to make sure there's no cracks or anything like that before we send it off to the machine shop, just to save them a little bit more money ahead of time. But we went through, we checked everything, cleaned up all the sharp edges, and we made sure we did not touch any of the casting numbers. Never machine off or buzz off any of your casting numbers. It has like the casting date. Casting number tells you the specs for the block, what size it is, date it was manufactured, and how many times the casting for the cylinders were changed before it was set off the factory. That's all very important for the block. It has value for the block, and it makes machining very vital for the block because it lets the machine shop know if the block can even be machined or if it's worth being machined. Thank you for having me over. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. We really appreciate you coming out. Guys, make sure you hit up his Instagram, follow him on Instagram. He's got some sponsors in there, so make sure to check them out. Then also make sure you're subscribed to us, like the video, comment us, tell us what we're doing right, tell us what we're doing wrong. Make sure you're here next week. Next week, we're hopefully jumping back on the frame.